Hi everybody, this is the Baseball Hut, the amazing, spectacular, terrific, the great one, the People's Champion. Your host, the Hut. Welcome back to the Baseball Hut 2. And hopefully you like this video and hit that subscribe button. As you know, we're less than a week away from the Major League Baseball trading deadline. We actually have a trade on Thursday night. We'll talk about that momentarily. But I need you to hit that subscribe button and watch the full length of this video. Because we're going to talk about as many names as I can find on the internet. And some teams that are attached to him, or to them, and we're going to go through it. And as you know, it is on July 31st at 6 p.m. will be the trade deadline, and I will be live on the Baseball Hut leading up to hopefully some interesting trades, to say the least. Now, the first name up on the list is Sandy Alcantara. Now, we have a bunch of names. I don't know if he's getting moved. He has pitched better of late. Interesting to see what kind of return the Marlins could get, but they have not a good organization. They tend to screw things up from time to time. They always undercut any kind of moves. But anyway, we've heard the Mets, Baltimore. Well, that's probably out now. It looks like Baltimore will probably be sold, so we'll cross them off. This is a list that began in May, late April, early May. The Boston Red Sox, the New York Yankees, the San Diego Padres, the Dodgers, the Texas Rangers, and the Cubs. Luis Robert Jr., and obviously he's the center fielder for the White Sox, probably the worst team in the American League, and really the last few years. I've heard Houston, the Phillies, Cincinnati, San Diego, San Francisco, Cleveland. But Cleveland might be out on the way out too, in terms of trading players, and the New York Mets. I've heard the Mets have asked. They talked to them. The Sox. Ryan Helsley. Be interesting to see what the Cardinals do. I think they'll probably stand pat. I've heard Arizona, though, with him, Philly, the Dodgers, the Mets, the Cubs, and of course, the New York Yankees. Another name, and this is a name that's interesting, who I had on here, but he was DFA'd by the White Sox, and that's Eric Feed. I expect some contending team to pick him up and put him either in the rotation, not the rotation, but in the bullpen for whichever team, or in the minor leagues and get him ready to come back. Brandon Lowe, I've heard, Seattle, and Pittsburgh. Now, to go back to Eric Feed, I would think the Yankees are interested, the Mets, the Cubs, the Dodgers, especially the Dodgers. I don't know why. Dylan Cease, believe it or not. But before Brandon Lowe, Seattle, and Pittsburgh, let me just make an adjustment here. Because I constantly make the list, and then, of course, I forget about the player, and then I write his name down again. So, but here we have Dylan Cease, and the names we've heard over the last 24 hours and very recently are the Mets, the Cubs, the New York Yankees, and, of course, the Boston Red Sox. So we'll cross his name out. That's later on in the list. But these are some of the teams attached to him. Jarren Duran, I've heard two teams on him. Be interesting to see if they move him with the Red Sox kind of skulking around contention. But Boston will be interested in moving him possibly to the Mets or the Padres. I've also had Brian Reynolds, but he, in all likelihood, is probably going to stay put. And, of course, if he stays put, then that's that. But I heard San Diego could be of interest. Next name is Charlie Morton. The New York Mets have checked in on him. If you're a Met fan, I'm a Met fan. He's a guy that would help the Mets down in October. It's an October kind of move. The Cubs, even at his age, still has a very nasty curveball. The Dodgers, the Yankees, San Diego, and the Red Sox. I don't think Baltimore will trade to the Yankees. But I just put the name there because the Yankees have been they're looking for pitching. Seth Lugo. We'll see what the Royals do. I think they'll probably stand pat, although start moving players. I've heard the Mets, Toronto, and the Cubs. Toronto has surprised a lot of teams and surprised baseball, including the host. I figured they would be finishing in last place this year, but they're in first place, and they look really impressive. Josh Bird, I've heard the Mets, but maybe not so much, because they brought in Brooks Raley back. Seth Haverson, Joe Adele of the Angels. I've heard the Mets with him. That was a while ago. Cedric Mullins, I've heard the Mets, the Phillies, San Diego, San Francisco. Kyle Finnegan of the Nationals. I'm surprised he didn't sign with another team in the offseason, but every team will be attached to him. Freddie Peralta, one of the aces of the Milwaukee staff. I don't think he's going to get moved, but I've heard the Mets, the Yankees, and the Padres. Tommy Pham could get moved to anybody. I would not have a problem with him coming back to the Mets, by the way. Ryan O'Hearn, I've heard Seattle, which might not be such the case now. Kansas City, San Francisco, and Houston. Luis Severino, I've heard the Mets prominently tonight. The Yankees, the Dodgers, the Cubs, and San Diego. Aroldis Chapman, to be determined very much to the end of the trade deadline because of the fact that the Red Sox are still around. Trent Grissom, I've heard the Mets, believe it or not. Ryan McMahon, I've heard the Mets and the Yankees, but I think the Mets, that's not going to happen. I think the Mets said that Dave Stern says that he's going with the guys that he has on the 26-man roster. Josh Naylor, traded. He's the only guy that gets the bell as they do his video. He got traded to the Mariners, and there were two other teams attached along with the Mariners. That's San Diego and Cincinnati. But he is not moving anywhere. He got moved tonight for two prospects from the Mariners. The 11th best prospect and the 13th best prospect. So basically, they got nothing for him. It's a very strange deal for the Diamondbacks that they picked this guy up, and he was not very good. So Adolis Garcia could go anywhere, but I've heard the Mets. Maybe the Mets aren't going to do that. Eugenio Suarez. We've heard the Yankees, the Mets, although I'm hearing not so much the Mets now. John Heyman reported that a little while ago. Cincinnati, the Red Sox, the Angels, and the Houston Astros. So the Houston Astros, a new name on the list for Eugenio Suarez. Interestingly enough. Now, of course, please like this video and subscribe to the Baseball at 2. Just going through a couple things here on the side as I record this video and make sure that I am not behind what's going on here. A lot happened in the last few days. But the next player up is Mitch Keller. I've heard the Cubs, the Mets, the Twins, and the Padres. David Bednar, he can go anywhere, but I've heard the Mets and the Tigers. Tigers won 1-10 in the last 11 games. This is how it is, baseball, folks. You know, teams go hot and cold. I've heard Emmanuel Clase. I've heard the Phillies and the Mets, which could be interesting because this offseason, Edwin Diaz could become a free agent, get opt out. I've heard now here's a whole bunch of names of players that don't have names attached, any teams attached to them. Andrew Haney, Jeffrey Springs, Dennis Santana, Mike Soroka, Herman Marquez, Aaron Savali. He could get moved again, but I don't think anybody wants him. Nobody wants a player that complains about being on a team. Nathaniel Lowe, Zach Littell. I've heard Marcelo Zuna with the Yankees. I hope he goes there. That would be funny. Zach Gallen. We've heard the Rangers, the Mets, the Twins, the Angels, and the Dodgers. O'Neal Cruz. His name has popped up tonight with the New York Yankees. Another guy who's fundamentally sound, playing out of position. Perfect for the New York Yankees these days. Kenley Jansen could be anybody. Sean Murphy, the so-called big catcher down in Atlanta. He could be moved. Brent Suter, maybe not so much because the Reds are in it. Merrill Kelly. I've heard the Mets, Seattle, and Toronto. He will get moved. He will get moved. And, of course, Zach Gallen's going to get moved because these guys obviously played with they played with Josh Naylor. And if Naylor's gotten moved tonight, these guys are going to go too. No doubt. Nolan Arenado, Merrill Kelly, like I said, the Mets, Seattle, and Toronto. Nolan Arenado, the Yankees, and the Mets. Maybe not so much now. I don't think the Mets are going to do that. Edward Cabrera, I've heard the Mets, San Diego, and of course the Minnesota Twins on him. Tomoyuki Sugano, I've heard Minnesota, the Cubs, Texas, and San Diego. Stephen Kwan, believe it could be going. I've heard the Mets possibly. He's a whole bunch of names here. I don't have teams attached to them. Ramon Laureano, Joan Duran, Trevor Rogers, and Felix Bautista, who is coming off of Tommy John. I would expect that he will be moved because that's what the Orioles do. 11 of the last 20 years, the Orioles have had years where they've lost 90 games, and it's a bad year for them. And we'll see if this transpires. So these are the moves that could be made. We have one move that happened on Thursday night with Josh Naylor going from the Diamondbacks to the Mariners. And that was a total disaster, that deal that they made with the Guardians. Hopefully back to the Indians this past offseason. So you let me know what you think about this video, of course. Please subscribe to the Baseball Hut 2. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.